as well, so we've had all kinds of amazing people. But it's our first time here at G-Fest,
This is
and
where
so we
you
have one we met.
made it here. So.
There's no perfect person as our first guest.
No.
So, and I'm Jessica. Hi!
And of course, everyone knows.
I'm Matt. I draw lizards.
No, but you have a line going out the door for you already.
What?
At Artist Alley.
Rockstar here, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably not just for me. I mean, there's other people in the artist alley.
That's true. Look at how humble and modest you are.
Look at him blush. Look at him blush.
What's happening?
So how's life, sir?
Life?
Yeah.
And I was a young boy in England. And it's been going pretty good. You know, it's busy. It's busy, I'll tell you that.
You got a new project you're working on, right?
That's right. We're working on Red Man.
All right. So let's go on. How did this come about?
It's kind of crazy because I would have never thought in a million years that I would have worked on a property like Red Man. Because for those who don't know, Red Man is a Super I property. Super I is the company that owns Ultraman. Back in the 60s and 70s, they were just pumping out all kinds of different superheroes, not just Ultraman. There was John Borges. There was Godman is Toho, isn't it?
Godman.
See, everybody was making them. You know, Jet Jaguar was Toho also trying to get in on the game, but one of the heroes Super I made was Red Man. They were there were these 2-minute episodes on a Japanese variety show, and where literally they would go out into the wilderness somewhere and find a spot for 2 guys in suits to just beat the crap out of each other. No choreography. It's very kind of stark and desolate and beautiful in a way, in a weird, messed up way. Super I started uploading the episodes to YouTube last year or the year before that. My editor in Japan, who's been releasing Godzilla Rulers of Earth in Japan, saw that and said, we should make a comic out of this. He went to Super I, they were like, yeah, sure. Whatever you want to do, buddy. Give us our royalties. And and that's kind of how it happened. There's more to it than that, but.
So way before that, with Little Matt Frank, how did you?
The wee boy in England. Sorry, go ahead.
How did you get into your love of kaiju and Godzilla monsters and everything?
Well, I think it all started when I grabbed a piece of electrical wiring, and no, I didn't do that though. Don't keep your kids away from electrical fences. You run around your yard, Dad. Anyway, so no, seriously, I think a lot of it for a lot of kids, it comes back to being in love with dinosaurs.
Yes.
And
Red-blooded American boy, those dinosaurs.
Exactly. They're these sort of larger than life things that really did exist. These real life monsters, and Godzilla is an extension of that. Because I remember as a kid not knowing what Godzilla was, and somebody gave me a birthday card that had a big green Godzilla on it.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, what is that? It's like a dinosaur in a city. That's kind of dope. And my mom and dad were like, oh, it's Godzilla. And I'm like, it's letters and words that don't mean anything to me. And eventually I started seeing the movies, and I'm like, all right, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I can get behind this. So that's kind of where it started.
What was your first movie? I like to ask that of all of our guests.
So the first one that I remember physically seeing was probably Godzilla 1985. Yeah, because that one was on a rotation for a lot of television networks and stuff. And it was some monster movie marathon. And I remember being so excited because this is the latest I'd ever stayed up. I was so excited. So I was like, because I had to sit through tentacles.
Yeah.
I had to sit through frogs. Critters was part of that at some point. And then Godzilla was like the last movie. And I'm like, I think I fell asleep. But I remember being so stoked on like the image of Godzilla, like walking through the city and stuff. But the first one I had like physically, and I remember watching over and over and like really memorizing, was Godzilla versus the Sea Monster.
Okay, did you have the Good Treasures video?
Yeah, the one with
the claw with the Godzilla kind of like jumping out like an old.
No, it was an illustrated cover. But it was a green Heisei Godzilla.
Oh, okay.
With a big red emerald. He's breathing red fire out of his mouth. Oh. It was like a comic book cover almost.
Weird.
Yeah, it was a cool. I loved it, and that's one of my favorite Godzilla movies.
Yeah, so my first video was Megalon, and it was like this really bad, like photo. But back then, what we would call now Photoshop, it was just slapped. Like, says Godzilla vs. Man, you have no idea because it was all this painted orange look. Godzilla was melted into the background. You could barely tell Godzilla on the cover.
Yeah, I've never seen that one. I thought it had a lock on all those Godzilla VHS covers from the 80s and 90s.
Warehouse Video. Yeah, they just didn't give a crap.
I mean, that license was just getting tossed around, I tell you.
Yeah.
So how was it like working on one of the longest running Godzilla comic series in IDW? Because before that was Marvel.
Yes, that's
and
right.
then it was you and Chris Murray and Zorno. So what was that like actually working into almost canon, the history, working with Toho, working with IDW?
I mean, when I first got to work with them, I remembered the first thing I did were those stomp covers for for Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters, and they were the sword stomping covers. I remember really lobbying for that. Like I was sending them emails and stuff. Apparently, they were already thinking about asking me because Chris Murray knew me. You know, I had a following and stuff. And I remember just being like, when I got the call, so to speak, the email, I was like, all right, here we go, you know, lock in business mode. And I remember somebody took me aside at one point, I think it was Chris Murray from Toho Kingdom, he took me aside and he was like, you know you're like working on a Godzilla property now, right? And I'm like,
it's legit.
Oh my God! I'm coming down! No, it was like this giant wave kind of hit me. I'm like, oh. And then it got replaced with raw panic and fear. I can't mess this up. I can't mess this up. I can't be late on this. So, and so moving on to that, it sort of became a little bit of a routine. It would be, I would do covers, and then I'd make a pitch to do something, to do like a comic. Like, you know, I managed to get Godzilla Legends in there, and that was sort of my, kind of dipping my toe in as far as doing interiors on a Godzilla book. But then Rulers came around, and Rulers was almost a fluke, because they just needed something to fill their schedule, and they were like, well, Chris and Matt and Jeff,
these are all the nerds.
These are the Godzilla nerds, you know, because I mean, guys like Eric Powell and the rest of the teams who were doing the other main Godzilla books at the time, you know, they're fans, but they're not like.
They're not hardcore.
The rabbit hole doesn't go as deep for them. Like, you know, they don't have, I'm going to probably guess that Eric doesn't have an album by the Peanuts, by the original Mothra Fairies, or, you know, can recognize a Godzilla suit by its silhouette. So I'm not throwing shade or anything. I'm just saying he's a real artist. I'm just kidding. So they were like, yeah, you want to take a crack at? Do you guys want to do like an ongoing Godzilla book? And I was like, yeah, let's do this. This is our shot. And we kind of dove into it. You know, I had to kind of corral things a little bit. Chris sort of had this vision, this one particular vision that he wanted to do for Godzilla book, but then he had to kind of wrangle that in because we had to fit it in continuity with the previous two series, with Kingdom of Monsters and History's Greatest Monster. But as it was when you're actually reading it, there's not a whole lot of through lines because we just were so excited by the ideas that we were having and our new characters we were coming up with. Well, we managed to make a couple of connection points. You know, one of our main characters, Stephen Woods, is the main character, one of the main characters from Kingdom of Monsters. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about that, but
so when you guys sat down, what was the big what do we like? You guys pretty much the way when we talked to Maori, he said, look, here are the rules. It's like you can't kill any monsters, but here's the licenses you have. Go ahead, and Toho just kind of had to give a slight approval once you guys put the book.
Yeah, what was it like creatively working with Toho? Like, how strict was that?
Toho, I think gets a bad rep sometimes because they're like, oh, they're real strict, or oh, they're real persnickety, and I can see that to an extent, but I think because we were fans and a little ridiculous in our own attention to detail, I was having to. At one point, I got an email from our contact at Toho. She was like, bless her heart, she put up with so much. She said, is Destroyer weak to cold? Because she just couldn't remember. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, I fired back with like this, oh yeah, because Godzilla's Destroyer, this kid, the scientist character is creating the micro-oxygen, discovers that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I think I deleted half of that email before I sent it, because I'm like, she doesn't care. Yeah, I did. It's not that she doesn't care, she just has a job to do. And she had to approve stuff and has to try to approve as much as she can without having to translate stuff to send it overseas. Because this was our contact at the LA office.
Oh, at the LA office.
Yeah.
Okay.
But honestly, some of their notes I actually really appreciated because they were little things that I thought like, oh, that kind of makes sense. Or I'd go through and I'd redraw something and I'd be like, you know, it looks better now. Like the San Diego Comic-Con cover I did for Gangsters and Goliaths.
Yeah.
Godzilla had a completely different pose when I first drew it. He was much more low. He was a little more like Godzilla '98, where he was kind of low to the ground. His head was kind of, he was almost like a crouching prowl almost. And she wrote back and said, this isn't really, it's not really the image, there is a standard image for Godzilla they want to present. They're starting to get a little looser about it now, but she just was like, it's not really, he needs to still kind of feel like a guy in a suit, basically. And at first I was kind of like, oh, yeah, like, no, I wasn't happy about it. I went back and I think what the secret was, she was actually may have been trying to tell me this pose is bad. Because I went and I flipped it in Photoshop and I'm like, whoa! Oh, it's all wrong! Like, because that'll happen. If you're budding young artists out there, flip your images. Everything will be revealed. So you're going to have eyes that are up here. You're going to have arms that are going the wrong way. And I looked at Godzilla and I'm like, oh boy, I got to redraw this.
That was excellent advice, actually, that you just gave.
I mean, that's what it's not something I honestly try not to do it because I'm just like, I just want to get this thing done. But it is a good idea.
Were there any panels and splash pages that you really loved and was proud of? And ones that you looked back and you were like, oh, I would redo that?
The first 4 issues of Rulers of Earth.
Wait, to redo or proud of?
Well, I was proud of them. Now I'd love to redo them.
That's the standard artist thing, though.
Yeah.
And, like a lot of artists that I've ever talked to, like, especially stuff like I brought up stuff to Joan Vasquez before, and I'm like, dude, I actually love. He's like, I freaking hate that. Like, it bugs me. It's like the eye's just a little bit off. I'm like, what was I doing there? I'm like, no one else cares.
See, but the artists care. We see it.
Yeah.
Because, the other day, a young man sent me a message asking, like, what is this art here? And it was like it was a poster I did for Toho Kingdom way back before I was even doing official stuff. And it was a bunch of the video game Godzilla characters, like Box Ardan and the Mechagodzilla from the Dreamcast game, and a bunch of other stuff nobody knows what I'm talking about. But and I remember looking at that, and he sent it to me, and I was like, oh god, that old thing. And he's like, why? What's wrong with it? And I'm just like, you have to reel it in sometimes and think to yourself, you know what? The people who care don't really care. Like, they just like the art. But I think as artists, we hold ourselves to a certain standard, and that's what keeps us improving. That's what keeps us moving forward as artists. Because you don't want to stall out.
You're always your own worst critic.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
And it also helps to surround yourself with other artists who are critical of your work. Like my buddy Jared, I used to send him drawings. He'd be like, "That's all right."
I was gonna say, what type of critical? We're talking like polite critical.
Well, sometimes you could use a little kick in the butt every now and then. I think because
especially with someone you know.
If it's someone who's like your friend, you want them to give you sound advice, and you want them to be honest with you, like.
Bring you down a peg.
Yeah, exactly. Like my buddy Hiroshi, who's I don't know if he's here now, but I know he's in the. There he is. Hey, buddy. He actually has been really helping me work on drawing characters for specifically Japanese audiences, and he's had really good insight into that because sometimes I draw myself a little too American style. And he'll say, a little too much, dial it back a little. So I appreciate that, buddy. So go see him in the dealer's room. He's a really great artist, too.
Now, go back to when you guys were putting rulers together.
Yep.
Now, Mara said, like, we had this whole cast here, and we had actually you guys had just acquired more characters. So when you sat down, what was the roster of like, here's what we definitely want to do right off the bat?
Yeah.
So what was that pull? What got put in? What got pulled out?
As far as like kaiju?
Yeah, kaiju wise.
Well, I mean,
That's what
yeah, that's what we're talking about. I mean, the first thing I said was we need to open with Godzilla versus Godzilla. We need to open with Godzilla '98 versus the Japanese Godzilla because it'll be a big selling point. It'll be a big buzz, generate a lot of buzz, and we want to do a proper fight because the Final Wars battle is fun.
It's a joke.
It's a gag, though. It's not really a fight. And we want to do like a full issue's worth of a battle. But we couldn't really do that because, right off the bat, because, this is fun, this is a little behind the scenes for you. So, for Godzilla Legends, they had commissioned Art Adams, my boy, to other art dad. They commissioned him to make a bunch of covers for Godzilla Legends. And then they went ahead and like paid him to do a whole bunch because I don't know exactly what happened. I think he just went ahead and did a bunch more, just because he wanted to. And they were like, "Oh, we'll buy those." And then they were like, "Oh crap, we don't have anywhere to put this Gigan cover." so for the first issue, that's why Gigan shows up in the first issue of Godzilla Rose of Earth because we had this Art Adams Gigan cover, and we had to establish that Gigan is in this world. And he's still around, so that's why that happened. But yeah, so Gigan was sort of this happy accident, and the thing is, Chris's script, his concept was, because he was in the Navy, and he really, and I believe that had a lot of inspiration for him to want to make this what was essentially a kaiju Navy battle, because he wanted sort of this utopian-esque, Mu-esque civilization. Which became the Devonians, to have all these sea monsters and basically take over the world's oceans. And that was why we had Destroyer, Titanosaurus, Gezera, Manda, the rest. Basically all these aquatic monsters. And then it became like this alien civil war thing, which, by the way, we had a huge backstory between the two alien races. And I think it changed like 3 times. But if you ever want to find out about that, I'll be happy to tell you about it. Just not now. We got other stuff to talk about. But yeah. So yeah, we had our gotta get 'ems, and then by the and at the very beginning, I said I want an issue of Rodan versus Varan. That was issue 5,
and they got a cover too.
That's right. Yeah. I wanted Rodan versus Varan, and then Jeff got to draw it. Which I'm just like, Ron's my favorite monster.
You guys also, you worked in the Gargantuas, which
kudos
to that.
That was very cool. That was very fun. I was so excited when we got the Gargantuas because and I knew as soon as I knew we had them, I was like, we got to do Godzilla versus Gargantuas.
Yeah.
Godzilla versus Sanda and Gyra because they're just too cool. I remember though. Quick aside. I know I'm rambling a lot.
No, it's okay.
I'm like Kevin Smith up here. Just go for like 2 hours talking about giant spiders. What's that? Okay. He said I could. That guy.
Yes.
Okay. So, funny story. The finale, the final part of issue 10, Godzilla fights Sanda and Gyra. So, I don't want to give too much away, but they managed to drive him away. They kind of managed to win. Because they're the underdogs. It's like the Mothra larvae going up against Godzilla. I always thought that was a really great ending because it kind of subverts your expectations, and they fight a smarter battle. Godzilla's smart, but he's not smart. Sanda and Gyra are, they're basically hominids. So, they managed to chase Godzilla off. They almost get killed in the process, but they managed to more or less defeat Godzilla. There was this one fan who hated that so much, he completely turned on the book, and he started kind of harassing people on our Facebook page and stuff. It's like, why do you even like this book anymore? And it's like, man, it's called narrative fiction. There has to be a way things work, and you want a satisfying conclusion. And I don't know. I mean, we were a little cheap with it, but at the same time, I thought it was clever. But anyway, so I don't know. I just think that's fun. I just think it's a fun little aside. He stuff after a while. He's all right now. So
it was just one.
It was just that one thing.
It was just a one. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's Jessica right now with Tom King's Batman
It's okay.
I was a fool to think Bruce could be happy. So.
We all know he can't be happy. He's
Yeah.
Batman. It's not like he's a hero or something.
Yeah. So Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle was supposed to be married on July 4th. Go read the comic. Tom King is amazing, but the ending is what you would suspect for a character that you know for 75, 80 years.
Anticlimactic.
Can't have anything stick.
Yeah.
It's like for the Power Rangers model. Just change out the team every year.
Oh, yeah. Well, so before you got into Godzilla, what were you doing before? Because I think you're
Nothing.
I believe you did a Harryhausen book, didn't you?
That's right.
Yeah.
I did that. That was my first like big official comics gig. Was for Blue Water Productions. Nah, nothing but love. But they had this license from Ray Harryhausen to make comics more or less based off of the characters, not so much the movies. Well, some of them were public domain, some weren't. But, like, for example, there was a Wrath of the Titans comic, which was to Clash of the Titans. There was a 20 Million Miles to Earth comic. There was a... and I was attached to the Mysterious Island comic. And the writer on that was Max Landis.
Oh, wow.
That's how Max and I met.
Okay.
And Max, I know.
Okay. All right.
Max he's a little bit of a pill. No, but he actually had this actually pretty great concept where basically Captain Nemo had gone out, and in the intervening years after the events of the original book/movie, Nemo had gone out and collected up all these Harryhausen monsters to be on the island. There's a family of Cyclopses from Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. There was an Emir that was from 20 Million Miles of Earth that was kept in like a vault. There was a, oh God, what else was there?
Dragon?
No dragon. There was a Radosaurus though.
Okay.
The Radosaurus was there. There was a lot of, we had the fire gremlin things from another one of the Sinbad movies. We had a whole menagerie. And I got booted from the interiors on that because I couldn't, that was my first ever like regular interior gig. I was in college at the time and couldn't keep up with the pages.
But it was hard because you're going to school and you were trying to work at the same time.
Yeah, I was just skipping classes at a certain point. And I was like, I got a real job.
That was the purpose of school, though, to help you get a real job. But then you already got the real job.
Yeah.
So it's okay. You were still in school.
You're kind of like Facebook as it's like after a while it's like, well, I need this.
You know, I very nearly dropped out a couple times, but I stuck with it, and it all worked out. It's fine. Just expensive. Nah, it's all good. Yeah, no, I did the right here, and then I actually the big one I did was this one shot of just about the Cyclops, and it was sort of a prequel to.
That's the one I saw online.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back your nascent DeviantArt days.
Yeah, that's right. That's back when I was doing Godzilla Neo.
Yes, that's
still am now. I brought it back. Just need to keep up with it because I got other stuff to do. But yeah.
Because you're working artist now.
Yeah.
From like going from fan to fan drawings, like I'll do this to like I can do this in between the other products. It's a good problem to have.
It is. I mean, I have what am I at? I have 96 Redman pages I have to have done by the middle of October.
Oh, good lord. Now, how are they releasing that? Is it like in the digest format?
Yeah, it's just in trade paperback form.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm structuring it as individual issues because I wanted the episodic nature of the show. Mm-hmm. That's why they're called Red Fights. Like Red Fight 1, Red Fight 2.
So how does that break down? Because the episodes are like 2-3 minutes apiece.
So I'm also writing it.
Okay, look at that.
And in fact, I've got all the scripts on my phone. I was working on episode 7 while I was on the plane the other day, and it's really interesting because I feel like it's a tricky balance. You have to have, because Redman is such a desolate world with not a lot in it. You kind of get the sense, though, you could extrapolate a story from this, because it's almost like this weird purgatory that this guy is in, just running around killing monsters. And so I used that, and I really wanted to harness kind of the bleakness of it, but it's almost become a bit of a dark comedy as well. Because and I've got copies of the Japanese edition downstairs. It doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue. You don't really need to. You don't have to say much. one of the, for example, one story is about Icarus Seijin, who is basically just on the run, and it's basically a Jason Voorhees style story with Redman as the slasher. Then another story is about Draco, Black King, and Zars trying to form a trio to take down Redman, and it's a farce. It's a complete farce. I got super goofy with it. There's one part where Draco is explaining his plan, but he's a kaiju, so he can't talk. So it's just these crude little drawings that I did with my left hand of little chibi versions of the monsters, and it's like Draco versus Redman equals dead Draco, and then Draco plus Black King versus Redman equals they're both dead. But Zars plus Draco plus Black King equals dead Redman, and they're having a party. it's ridiculous.
But that's how I think dogs think. I think dogs think in photos.
Yeah.
Like person plus bone equals love.
Yes,
you know?
yes. That's me. Yeah, I
You
get
have
it.
a dog.
Yes,
Yeah,
she's
I
an
have
idiot. She ate 2 raisin loaves.
Oh.
Don't feed your dog raisins. It's everywhere. Not that I didn't do it on purpose. She's a counter surfer, little sneak. I love her though, and I don't want anything to happen to her.
So you had mentioned that you're both drawing and writing it.
Yes.
And by academic trade, I'm actually a comic book historian, so I do a lot of public speaking about the education of comics history and everything. And I've come to notice that there are more artists turned writers, or artists and writers, than it is a writer who also draws the book. It's more of an artist that also happens to be given the privilege to also write it. What was that process like that you are now doing both? You went to do art and now you're also writing it as well.
So that's a really, really interesting subject, and I think that well, first off, the way that people are able to do that artists are able to transition into writing their own work, is because it's easier for artists to break into the industry than it is for writers. Because an artist, you can just show yourself, and it's like, look, I did a picture, and then people will be like, oh, that's neat, make more of that. With a writer, you have to get someone to sit down and dedicate brain power to reading your material, and that can be super hard to do. Max and I used to talk about that, actually, and yeah, it's just.
I feel like artists, after a while, they understand narrative so well, they can also become the writer, but not all writers can draw. It's hard to transition the other way.
I mean, writing can be, it's an art form that is just as time-consuming and difficult as drawing. And some writers, that's what they do. That's what they want to dedicate their time to. And with artists, I think that's a really good point. Of like, we try to study form because we also have to be able to tell a story just with pictures sometimes as well. You sometimes don't have a full script to rely on. You've got to ad-lib stuff. And just personally, I just really like storytelling. I have a bunch of YouTube videos I listen to. I listen to Lindsay Ellis almost on constant repeat because I listen to her dissections of story structure and how scripts work and stuff. And she's got a great video about the Disney Hercules that's all about breaking down why it is fundamentally doesn't work as a film, but it's still like wonderful. It's so fun though. And there's just, but personally, I don't know, like I wanted to kind of write my own stuff a lot. I actually wrote, or at least did passes on a lot of the scripts I worked on, like the Harryhausen Cyclops book. Jeff Rebner actually came up with the original outline for that. He just told it to me over the phone, and then I wrote a script based on that. And of course, I got a lot of practice writing in with Godzilla Neo because I was writing an entirely new timeline for the Godzilla history and trying to be the insane task of mashing it all together into one continuity. Yeah, it's mostly successful, I think. But yeah, so I think you hit the nail on the head though. Is like artists just kind of sort of fall into it after a while.
I think people take artists as you guys are doing a little more work than writers, mostly because just about anybody can write. You don't have to write good.
That's fair. I was going to say qualify that.
Yeah. Like you can, but sitting down typing out something seems a little easier than sitting there trying to get like symmetry and depth down than more than anything else.
I think it just depends on the person, to be honest. But I think in a broad stroke sense, that is true. Like I think it is a little more, maybe a little more labor intensive.
Yeah.
Because you also do your own inking and your own coloring.
I try to do as much myself as I can. Now, when it comes to interiors, we got deadlines, so I'll pass stuff off to Goncalo Lopez I've worked with, and they'll just knock it out of the park. I try to always pair myself with colorists who match my line art really well, because my coloring style tends to be a little chunky and painterly, and so I try to find artists who kind of match that. And Goncalo's been knocking it out of the park with Red Man. Yeah, but I do color. I try to color as many of my covers as I can, and all the prints you see on my table downstairs, I colored all those myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
No. So some fun things. Let's go crack down on this. All right, favorite film.
Favorite film, like all time.
In our so let's do favorite Godzilla film, favorite non-Godzilla film.
Okay, favorite Godzilla film is GMK. Is Daikaiju Sokogeki. It's just the crackerjack Godzilla movie. Like I think it's the last Godzilla movie that I really wowed me, because I like all the ones that have come out since then. I like 2014 and Election, and I like all that stuff. But GMK was the last one. I was like, oh man, this is so good. And then I go back and rewatch it. I'm like, whoa, there's like a whole other layer I didn't realize going on here. Yeah, and it's just I mean, I don't think they had as much. It's not as tight a film as the Gamera trilogy, because the Gamera trilogy, I think, is another one of my. That's another one for me. Like if I could lump them together, my top 3 non-Godzilla movies are 3 Gamera movies mashed into one.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park and Princess Mononoke.
Okay.
So
Jurassic Park holds up.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
No, believe me, that was like religion.
Oh, sure. Like I actually watched it at a friend's house recently. We had a little party over there. We had a Rice Krispie eggs with little dinosaurs in them. It was great. Bring Karen really knocked it out of the park with that. What's up?
What about the watermelon?
Oh yeah, the watermelon that was shaped like a dinosaur's head. Karen made that too. And we watched Jurassic. We put on Jurassic Park, and I'm sitting here, I'm just like, everybody stop! No, stop, look at this part. And everyone's like, you've seen the movie, Matt. So yeah, it still does it for me. Like,
no, you want them to take in the beauty and the grace of this film.
Exactly, yeah. And I also it says something about my love of the Gamera trilogy in that I dropped $600 to rent out a theater at the Alamo Draft House for my 30th birthday so we could watch Guardian of the Universe. And
that was well spent, though.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
well spent.
I even had a pre-show with the MSC3K Gamera, and we had a grand old time. It was great. A couple of my friends who were not Kaiju fans came up to me afterwards and were like, Matt, I had no idea it was like this. This was awesome.
And Gamera 3 in the theater with a bunch of people too.
I gotta do 2 first, and then I gotta do 3. So I'll save up for that. But yeah, and then Princess Mononoke actually rearranged my brain chemistry as far as what animated films could be.
Was that your first Miyazaki film?
That was my first Miyazaki. It was one of my first anime
really?
Productions, because we found a DVD at Hollywood Video or something, and my buddy and I crowded around our giant PC, my dad's giant PC upstairs, because that was the only DVD player we had, and we're just like, I didn't know this could be like this, I didn't know.
Was your mind blown when you actually went and found out how Miyazaki made that film? It's mostly storyboarded.
Oh yeah, I've gone through since then and just been found out so much more about it, and it's just such an amazing production. And you know what? It may be a flawless movie. I can't really think of any major criticisms of it. So, come at me.
Anybody would disagree with you on that one. I mean, his work is.
He's no Big Trouble in Little China, but.
I would greatly agree with you on that one too.
It's so good. That's a flawless movie that is deeply flawed. But,
but
it's also
it's like me with RoboCop. I love RoboCop's one of my all-time favorite films. To me, it's one of the top 10.
It's fantastic. It's great. Well, just because a movie is perfect doesn't mean it's flawless. I would argue that Jurassic Park is a perfect movie, but it's got flaws. There's some deep errors.
There's some legitimate small continuity flaws and stuff.
Yeah, where is that cliff
Yeah.
Where did the T-Rex come up from with the
Exactly,
goat?
yeah.
And then he pushed the car over the cliff into his own paddock.
Yeah.
Where's that 100-foot drop?
Exactly.
Where did that come from?
Which, by the way, they reference in the last Lost World movie, and it's like there was no mountain next to Chris Pratt. It's like, where did this fall off from?
Fallen Kingdom.
Oh, I was about to ask you.
Fallen Kingdom.
I was about to ask you your thoughts on that, but I got scared. But you brought it up,
Hold on,
so
can
we're
I say
okay.
something before you go? Man, I know
No.
where you're going.
Go ahead.
Great first and partial second act. God awful third act.
You're allowed to think that.
All right.
Here's the thing. I want to be clear. If you liked Fallen Kingdom, you got no beef. You can like whatever you like. I don't care. Like whatever you want. That is one of the worst scripts I have ever seen in a major. Someone was paid millions of dollars to write this. This is a script. Okay, did anybody know what Best of the Worst is? Okay, some people do. So go on YouTube, watch these Best of the Worst videos. These guys, they did that. These are the same guys who did that long form Phantom Menace review from a couple years back. They do these. They will watch these old movies, usually from the not even old movies, just stuff from now too. But a lot of them tend to come from the '80s. Some of them are from Russia, and they're these they'll watch these terrible movies and discuss them. And these movies are like, there's stuff like Troll 2 or The Room, stuff like that, where it's like a person wrote this movie who doesn't understand how movies work. They know that movies have to have scenes in them, things have to happen in the movie, but they don't understand justification, they don't understand characterization, they don't understand basic plot threads to make something have a reason. Like Manos and Hands of Fate, that's another great example. What is it? Rotor is another great. It's just. That's what Fallen Kingdom is. It's a movie with a bunch of scenes that don't make any sense because it's like, why did she go into her bed? Why did she go to her bed? Because they had the scene for the trailer, and they wanted the scene for the trailer, and then they were like, oh crap, now we have to put it in the movie. So, I don't know.
But when little kids get scared, they tend to go under the blanket.
She's been being chased by a dinosaur for the last 20 minutes!
Super murder sword, which is always meant to be.
Probably should have went under the bed. Probably would have made more sense. As a girl who lived through earthquakes, I would hide.
It's fine. I get the tenuous thread of logic. I'm just saying she's been being chased by a dinosaur for 20 minutes. It was just, to me, looking at it, I could really tell it was like a scene they wanted it for that shot of the
claw.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, this is a dinosaur that's just been smashing its way through.
But it's real
glass.
quiet.
And it's real quiet in this one scene. This one part, because they wanted the Nosferatu arm coming out. And
it's a bipolar dinosaur. It's at one moment it's all over the place.
it is kind of all messed up, but like it's not really conveyed in the. It needs a mother! Oh man, BD Wong, why can't they just give you a proper role in these movies? Just be a villain for once. Anyway, also Chris Pratt. Okay, here we go. So he's got, in movies, your character, you go and you find your character because you somebody says, well, I know somebody who can help. I got an expert or something. You go find a character, they're down on their luck. Use this example, but they're Matthew Broderick digging up worms in Chernobyl, or they're washing dishes somewhere, or getting yelled at by somebody, and then that's when the other character comes, or they're Raleigh helping to build the wall in Pacific Rim. Yes. The kind of character who's a self-imposed exile, but there's a tangible sense of sadness. And that's their motivation to get back in the game, go to the island and find your dinosaur friend, girlfriend, or whatever. And not, I'm living an idyllic life out in Montana, building a cabin with my bare hands, because I'm Chris Pratt and I've got no flaws.
But he's so dreamy.
Not my type. I'm getting upset.
Okay.
My wife turned to me. I took my wife and a friend of mine to go see Fallen Kingdom, And I knew that I was going to need something to get through this, so I ordered 2 drinks. And I just sat there and just like slamming the stuff. And then, so I started giggling uncontrollably throughout most of the movie. And then at the very end, they both turned to me. They were like, "Man, you deserve the hangover that you're gonna get." So
That poor Brachiosaur, though.
don't
like a little
manipulate me, movie, into thinking I care. Shut it, cry. You cried.
Okay, on stuff you hate, and stuff you don't care
I
about.
don't like not liking a movie about
I
dinosaurs.
know. Okay, on stuff on.
It's perfect MST3K material. That's what I'll say.
Okay, so we got your favorites. What is your word it least favorites of the genre of it all?
I don't care for Big Man Japan.
Okay.
I really don't like that movie. It's just extremely cynical.
Yeah.
For no reason. It's just mean.
Especially at the end when they go to the live action portion, they're like, "Oh, get in there!"
Yeah, you know what I really want in my goofy giant monster fighting movie is domestic abuse.
Yeah.
That's how I want to end my movie. That movie sucks. What else? That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. I can't think of any other movies I really hated. I didn't care for Ant-Man.
Actually,
Have you seen Ant-Man and the Wasp?
I heard that's good.
Okay.
I want to
Should
see
see
that.
it. Should see
I
it.
just, I don't
that
know.
hurts. I love it.
Hey, that's great. That's fine. I got no beef with you. I just was like, I don't need you to tell me it's not a keychain movie voiceover. It's a movie about stuff that grows and shrinks. You hold up a little tank to make a point to punctuate a scene about how we're going to escape. You don't need to be like, it's not a keychain in an awkward voiceover. Sorry, that drives me nuts. Anyway, that's the only reason. But
That was definitely a studio note point right there.
that was a studio note where it's like, people aren't going to get it.
Yeah. Okay.
Visual storytelling.
Yeah, I guess I know to open up a can of worms with this. What do you think of the last Pacific Rim movie?
Yeah, it was alright.
Is that alright?
Yeah, it was it was dumb but harmless.
Okay.
You know, just kind of disposable.
It was mediocre.
Mediocre, thank you. Well, you know what it was? It was the movie that people who didn't like Pacific Rim thought Pacific Rim was.
Yeah.
It was
Actually very
it was kind of a dumb, hollow movie with like, oh, there's robots, there's some monsters. There's kind of a thing going on with fins in this. That's neat. Okay, I guess. Oh man, I'm so excited to see Ringo Kikuchi again, or not. Wasn't happy about that at all. That was a pretty big misstep. Otherwise, yeah, whatever. You know.
I noticed people who tend to hate the first movie love the second movie, and
Yeah,
then vice
that says
versa.
a lot.
And then vice versa. Those who love
Very
the first one didn't like the
polarizing
second one.
aspects.
Yeah. I mean, I've got small issues with the first movie, but for the most part, I think it's just fun, and it's a movie that knows it's fun. And it's also got Del Toro's just impeccable eye for filmmaking and visual storytelling. And just the second one is just like it's just a Hollywood sequel. It's a Hollywood machine sequel, and we didn't get to continue any of the cool plot threads from the first movie, except for the thing with Charlie Day, which was kind of interesting. But I think that was something that Del Toro came up with, and then I'm sad now. Rampage?
Yeah.
Rampage is awesome.
Rampage was awesome.
Rampage is one of the most fun I've had in the theater in years.
That third act is just.
Oh, it's so great.
I had
It's
fun
just
with that
because
movie.
again, it's a movie that it's aware of itself and it knows that it's silly. It knows it's a silly movie and it wants to have fun. And The Rock is just so charming, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan with that accent.
Yes.
It's unlikable.
He's pulling this old cowpoke out.
Yeah.
So, oh man, that scene with the little rat where he's like, "What's the little fella here?"
Yeah.
And the guy runs. Oh man, that was a lot.
I like how he walked with such confidence into a collapsing building,
Yeah.
like he had no
He
problems.
walked with his shoulder higher than his head. That's his
Mm-hmm.
cowboy swag. I love it.
I actually went out and played. I live near an arcade, and I went out and I went to go play Rampage to prepare myself for this film.
Because you're really going to get the full story.
Yes, yes, it is.
I
You
know,
will.
those are the best movies. Like, look at Pirates of the Caribbean. Literally no story to it. You can create something from a whole plot like that.
You take a really basic premise, and that's what you need to do with
Yeah.
these video game movies. Is
Yeah.
you need to take the broad strokes of the premise and basically just make a new story. Because if you just try to recreate the game, like with Assassin's Creed, or something like that. I mean, you know the Bioshock movie is going to be this, like, you know it's going to be a train wreck.
I hate to see what they're going to do with that Super Mario.
I mean, it's alright. You know, they'll surprise us. You know, I don't think people really gave Rampage a chance, though.
Yeah.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they saw arcade turned movie, and they were like, this is going to be bad.
I took my 9-year-old grandmother to see
It is
Rampage.
going to be computer.
She was like, because she loves that, she loves the Fast and Furious movies.
Awesome.
Awesome
grandma. Awesome grandma.
So she's like,
Minion.
every Sunday, she's like, what's that? I'm like, this movie called Rampage. She's like, that sounds like it's got a lot of action in it. I'm like, yes, it does. And she has Rock. She loves the Rock. She goes, halfway through, she turns to me, she's like, what's going to happen to that poor gorilla? I'm like, just watch and see. She's like, they're not going to knock over that whole building. How did they knock over that whole building?
You know, quick grandma story. My grandma is actually really responsible for a lot of the what I am, and she bought like all my Trim Masters Godzilla toys and stuff when I was a kid. So her fault. And I remember I used to take bootleg VHSs of new Godzilla movies over to her place to watch them. And I remember we were watching Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, and there's that ending part where he's like blasting Megaguirus, and she's like, just watch. She's more talking about the composition of the shot of him, like the fire coming up and blasting Megaguirus, and she's just like, you know, I tell you, those Japanese, they sure know how to make a pretty picture. I just loved it so much. Yeah.
Do we have any quick questions for Matt? Oh yes, we
That's a
have.
cricket start. The state. We're talking about Rampage? What? In general.
Oh, in general, a good movie has a good.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. It needs to be a crescendo. It needs to be a.
Yeah.
Well, I think that sometimes it's okay to kind of play with tropes and break rules and stuff, and have a middle act where you go to a casino. But it's stuff, you get weird sometimes, but you're mostly right. Yeah.
That gentleman.
Hi, I've been wondering this question since about Harryhausen comics earlier.
Yeah.
What's like your favorite Harryhausen monster in general?
The question is, what is Matt's favorite Harryhausen monster?
For me,
The Allosaurus in 1 million years BC. Because, thank you. That's my favorite Harryhausen movie, but that Allosaurus is so seamlessly integrated into that scene. It's just he's got that beautiful snake skin design to it. I've always loved that dinosaur. And so, and you know, because Harryhausen really based his dinosaurs much more off of Charles R. Knight's illustrations than really much else. So that's why his dinosaurs are so lively. You know, they don't have the horizontal posture that they're supposed to have, but they're very lively, they're quick, and they're very ferocious. And I just love that scene. So there you go. This young man here.
The question is, how does Matt come up with these kaiju battle ideas?
That monster hasn't fought that monster yet. Let's do that. that'd be neat. Hey, I mean, basically, sometimes you want to make sense of the story. Like, for example, you want all the aquatic monsters to be trying to fight Godzilla at once underwater. Like, that's a really cool. I had Dragon Ball Z soundtracks going on because I had it in my head kind of as like almost like a mid-air Dragon Ball Z fight, but it's monsters and they're underwater. Yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh, so many. We'll do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh, how are you counting?
Oh no!
I was counting this one.
I got real confused.
Yeah, no.
Who are we starting with?
The gentleman in Mexico.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think as long as you have a solid premise,
where everything is. So.
you can just kind of start writing and kind of pick an interesting start point and try to get the story to evolve naturally. Like, I'm really writing these Red Man comics on the seat by the seat of my pants. Like, I'm just like, and then this happened, and but it kind of makes sense. I'll change that later, and but often I actually don't have to change much because it's just this, like I said, it's this rising action. There's maybe a little bit of a dip towards the middle, and then it comes back up. You want to have maybe a little bit of a breather. You go back through and you're like, I think needs to be a little bit of a break here because it's a little too much all at once. So, you draw upon your instincts as a creative and what makes sense to you, as well as what makes sense narratively, and you just kind of go from there. It takes a while to lock it in, but do it. Do it, you win. Come on, right now. What are you doing here?
You just start. It's like anything else. You figure it out as you kind of go along. You can go online. You can read, like, people can give you ideas and how to structure stuff, but at the end of the day, it's all on you, man. Like, the ideas are all on you.
There's tutorials you can listen to. There's all kinds of YouTube videos about writing. I think Writing Lessons is a series of videos that are really worth checking out because there's a lot of really, they talk about movies and stuff, and I think there's a great video that compares the animated Avatar: Last Airbender to the movie, and how the movie is such a giant fundamental failure as an adaptation, and how good the TV show is. I know. So yeah.
I never walked out of a movie. There were 4 times. I sat through that pile of crap. And that was like, and I was the staunch Samoan defender until Lady in the Water hit. I'm like, this is the crap. And then it's like, no, you're never getting another dime of my money ever again.
The last was
Split was fine, but someone paid for me to go see Split. So
Yeah.
I didn't have to pay. So it's like, okay, this wasn't.
We have a couple more questions.
Yeah. Sure, right
as
there.
we're wrapping up.
Yes.
Well, I mean, some people know this is that I really, Kaiju is sort of where a lot of my focus went growing up. And drawing humans is a little bit of a struggle because you have to be a little more delicate with how you draw people, and you have to draw them a certain way because the human eye can tell when a human is wrong. So, I sometimes struggle with that a little bit. I'm trying to think of who specifically. I will say, our main character in Godzilla Rulers of Earth, Lucy, she was a little bit of a struggle because I wanted her to, have a certain look to her. And I did this one sketch in my sketchbook that was perfect. It was a perfect sketch, and I could not recreate it. So I was constantly struggling to try to get back to that sketch, and it really, it's something you can tell sometimes where I'm like, okay, right here, he's really got it. And then the next one will be like, oh, now he doesn't. Or, oh, this is one that you penciled and had somebody else ink because we were, we're kind of struggling with our deadlines there at the 11th hour. But it comes with the territory. But yeah, I mean, I still love her. I like getting to draw her every now and then just for fun. Or for some people have asked me for commissions of her and stuff, which is nice. So yeah.
And you had a question, and you had a question, right? And then we'll just end from there.
I love Rulers of Earth. It's my favorite comic since the Dark Horse comics.
Yay! Thank you. The trilopods, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with the idea for them? Like, to incorporate them into the comics?
Fossils.
So the question is like, the trilopods and what's the whole basis of them?
Yeah, inspiration behind that.
It's kind of a long story, so I'll try to give the cliff notes. I got a call while I was the day before my wedding, and from Chris Mowry, we were talking about the script, and he was like, they weren't supposed to be one species. They were supposed to be an army of different monsters, just bunches, like a menagerie of monsters. And I told Chris, I think that runs the risk of us wasting a lot of really solid monster ideas. I think we should make it one collective species. And we went back and forth a little bit, and I sort of suggested, like, well, I want to do a trilobite monster for a long time. As obviously as a callback to Godzilla 54. And I did a little sketch. It's about the size of the palm of my hand, and fired it off to Chris. And he's like, "That's neat." And then I remember, then I had to go off and do wedding stuff, and then Jeff Zorno actually then took that sketch. He expanded it and added a lot of details and stuff. He may add some really interesting ideas to that. Then I took that and refined it one more time to come up with the final design. Like obviously it's got a bit of a trilobite, almost a pill bug look to it, but then it's those big fangs on the front and the mouth are based on Anomalocaris, which is a prehistoric shellfish from about the same time as trilobites. So, and the claws, I think on some level they were subconsciously Gigan a little bit, but actually when I went back and looked at them, I realized that, oh, these are bobbit worm jaws. Because it's got these very specific jagged look to them, and the bobbit worm is this huge, horrible worm that lives in the bottom of the ocean, and it has these switchblade trap jaws that are like always kind of splayed open like that, and they're real wicked looking. They have all these spurs and bony bladedness to them. They're horrifying. I love it. Great. But the natural world is your best source for monster designs.
Carter the Founder says that all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, Carter knows what's up.
Yes. And the question, yes.
Since you now work with both Godzilla, now Gamera, and with Tsuburaya, what's the next, one you want to tackle?
I mean, since we're doing Tsuburaya, they basically say like, hey, whoever wants to do Ultra right now. So nothing on the table yet, because Red Band's sort of taking up my time. But what I actually really want to do is I really want to get an original book out there, because I haven't really done one. Closest thing would be something like Project Nemesis, but I didn't write that or really conceptualize it. I designed Nemesis, and then they hired me to do the comic adaptation. But yeah, I've got some concepts for original books that we've been kicking around. Maybe a kaiju book? Maybe. We'll see what happens. But I do have a concept that I am working on that is not a kaiju book that I'm hoping to get out sometime in the next year. We'll see.
Okay. So Chris, where can people find us?
All right, so online, if you're not already following us, we have a Twitter. It's at the Kaiju Kingdom, one word. If you follow us on Twitter this weekend, I brought a menagerie of stuff to give away. I forgot to bring it down here for this panel. So, you follow on Twitter. We're hanging around. This is a small spot. Tell your friends, tell your family. Every time I tweet something out, I'll be giving out posters and prints, pretty much. So, just when I tweet out, just come find us, find Jessica or I, and then you'll get something fun. Most of our stuff is on our Facebook. It's facebook.com/the Kaiju Kingdom podcast. That's where the majority of everything, including those fancy new Godzilla pictures from that, look super awesome. Pretty cool. And and then online, if you're listening to our podcast, we're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, and you can directly download from us. We are on panzercrush.com. That's going under a overhaul for it, just in terms of quality and everything for the next couple of weeks. But you'll be seeing a lot of cool, awesome stuff coming from us in the next few weeks. Thank you.
So for here, I will be moderating the Women of Godzilla fandom in Kaiju fandom tomorrow at 2 p.m. And so but for us, collectively, for the Kaiju Kingdom podcast, we will be at San Diego Comic-Con, 3 p.m. next weekend at the San Diego Central Library.
With Godzilla himself.
Yes, one of our special guests, we have more to announce, is actually TJ Storm. He is Godzilla. He's the motion capture guy for Legendary's 2014 Godzilla. He is currently working on, I don't know if he's finished, I don't know how much I can say, for Godzilla, King of Monsters, and then we'll see with Kong vs. Godzilla, where TJ will be there.
That's awesome.
So, yes.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. This has been our first G-Fest Live.
Thank you.
Good compliment right there. Go spend some money on his artwork.
I'm heading downstairs right now.
Enjoy the rest of your show.